This episode of Tekzilla has been sponsored by the fine folks at Domain.com. Netflix, go to my PC, and a laser home alarm. Can lasers really protect your home? Pop access for all your webmail accounts for free, no paying a monthly fee, and source code. What exactly do you do with source code to make it useful on your PC? All this and a whole bunch more coming up on today's episode of Tekzilla. Welcome to Tekzilla. I'm your host, Patrick Norton.
And I'm your guest host, Jeff Canada.
Jeff.
Hey.
Totally Rad Show.
That's me.
Revision3.com/TRS.
That's right, on this very network. It's fun to visit the mothership.
This is so
finally.
cool.
Yeah.
This is actually going to be fun. We have a great show lined up for you today. We got laser home alarms. It's not really lasers like shooting your neighbor's cat every time they pee in the azaleas. It's a low-cost alarm system. Pop access for all your webmail accounts so you can access them for not paying a monthly fee. This is good. For all your old accounts, you'll like this. It's for free. Source code, what it is, and how you turn it into something you can run on your computer. Free burning software, Belkin Network USB Hub. Just before we begin, we should actually point out, in case you didn't met him, that's Jeff from the Totally Rad Show.
Yeah, the Totally Rad Show is a show we do on this network that's covering all the stuff that we think's rad, like movies and video games and comics and TV.
All stuff we hate here.
Oh, yeah.
Anything cool coming up?
I'm going to GDC tomorrow, so the show's going to talk about GDC next week. So we're going to
a little heavy gaming action.
I hope there's some really cool announcements coming up.
So you're not going to be here for WonderCon though.
I wish. Oh. No, unfortunately, it's not working out for us. But
WonderCon's going to be so much fun. In case you haven't, we're recording this on Tuesday morning. It's Friday when you're seeing it. This may be everywhere, so we apologize if you know this already. But HD DVD is officially dead. Do you have the white flag?
Yeah, evidently this is the official word from Toshiba.
This was a press release.
Yeah, they announced today that they have undertaken a thorough review of their overall strategy for HD DVD, and they've decided they're no longer going to develop, manufacture, or market HD DVD players or recorders. So they said the decision was made following recent major changes in the market.
In case you missed them, of course, that would be Warner. Maybe being paid a $500 million by the Blu-ray group, maybe just deciding they were done with HD DVD, Netflix dropping HD DVD, Best Buy deciding not to emphasize DVD, and probably the nail around the edges of the coffin is Walmart walking away from HD DVD. Yeah. So if you, like me, are one of the million or so people that actually either bought an HD DVD drive or an HD DVD standalone box, basically Toshiba, March, done. Netflix, HD DVD done at the end of February.
But this is a good thing for consumers, right? Because now we know what to buy.
Well, yeah. Now the idea is that there's going to be a single format, next generation DV. So apparently Microsoft's, you were talking about this before, the plot.
Yeah, I'm curious if you buy into the conspiracy theory that I've heard that says Microsoft just wanted to prolong the war so that neither format would win and people would just download HD
and
movies.
they'd all be forced to use Microsoft's Windows Media
or
Video.
Xbox Live or any of the other. Yeah, do you buy into that conspiracy?
I think it's even a little stretch even for Microsoft.
Yeah, it's a little dastardly.
It's a good. Maybe that was what motivated the Blu-ray to spend money, or however it happened. We don't know. It is kind of nice. I agree. You're right that there is going to be a single format, and I'm just not letting go of my Battlestar Galactica HD DVDs until I see the Blu-ray ones.
So if anybody out there has been waiting to buy, now's the time. Rush out. Commence the spending.
The man speaks truth.
HD format.
Although I got to say, you might want to wait a little bit because I think they're going to try to hold the prices on the Blu-ray stuff for as long as possible.
Yeah, well, now they have no competition, so I guess.
What is this competition? Of course there's competition.
Well, speaking of market shifts, all these cell phone companies now are offering $99 unlimited plans.
This has been funny. This has actually been showing up on Engadget and a bunch of the other websites. It's like AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, Helio, in case you haven't forgot them, and T-Mobile. T-Mobile's got unlimited text messaging and unlimited phone calls for $100 a month.
Yeah.
Sprint's got a weird thing where it's like Philadelphia, San Francisco, Tampa, and I want to say Minneapolis, St. Paul, because these are all sort of hubs.
No LA for me.
Apparently not. I think it's one of those test trials where it's $120 for unlimited everything, including data.
I would love that.
That would be pretty slick.
Because then I would never have to worry. I'm always worried, like, am I over my text limit? I just don't want to worry anymore.
Have you ever had like the $900 phone bill?
No, I'm usually under my minutes. It's only the text messaging that I get a little worried about. But
do you send a lot of text messages?
Since I got an iPhone, that's all I do.
Really?
That's all I do is text message
We're
people.
talking like 100, 200, 300 a month?
It can climb that high. Yeah, I prefer not to talk to people.
It's all coming together for me now. It's an interesting thing. If you're shopping around, well, the other thing that's really interesting is a lot of these actually are month to month. So. Which is really interesting. So they must be making bank on this deal.
Yeah, because they're not worried about getting you into a contract.
Yeah, normally they're like, we're going to nail your feet to the floor for 2 years, and if you're paying us $100 a month, we'll let you go anytime. There's something to be learned there about profit margins. Anyhow, the Apple TV update, of course, came out like 2 hours after we finished the show last week. It adds a whole bunch of new features. Well, actually, you know what? There's only one feature I really care about: renting movies on the Apple TV with just the remote control.
Yeah, HD movies, right?
HD, mostly, not a lot of HD movies. That's kind of the primary campaign. Have you seen the Voodoo box?
I have
really
seen
slick remote control system.
Yeah.
Basically, it's a dedicated hardwired box, no wireless connection. And they've got about 5,000 movies. No, we're just looking at all of the HD DVDs, and I'm not seeing a lot of, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So let's go back to the top, because I can multiply by 7 is pretty good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So 7 times 10 is 70, 40, like under 100 HD quality movies.
Yeah.
And they're not quite, they're good, but I gotta say they're not gonna be as good as a Blu-ray or the soon to be disappearing from your local shelves HD DVD disc. 24-hour rental like pretty much every other online thing, and some pretty good TV stuff in there.
I think it sucks that Apple requires you to use the Apple TV to get the HD version of the movies. You can't just hook up a computer and, like the guy who works on our show, Steve, he hooks up his Mac Mini to his HD TV in his living room, and he wants to be able to download the HD versions.
It's a little frustrating.
Yeah.
It would be nice. But you know what? I think what they're probably doing is there's so few HD titles. I think they're probably this is a trial balloon. They're floating it. They're going to see how it does, see how the servers get hammered, and then maybe I think they're going to open it up to everybody with front row.
I hope so. That'd be cool.
I know a lot of people that are using Mac Minis as home theater PCs, and it would be really nice. I mean, this would be a nice thing to have added in there. You know what? TV shows, those actually. I didn't even want to get into that. They got the whole conjunction junction, Schoolhouse Rock stuff there.
That's awesome.
It looks terrible because it's all like 70s quality transfers. But there's, it's the Apple TV. Is an improvement? Yes. If you're into movies, definitely something to consider about. It's forced Vudu to drop their price, which is really cool. Vudu still has the bigger selection of movies, I think.
And the larger hard drive, right?
Yes.
That's cool.
But it requires the larger hard drive because you can actually buy movies. In this case, you can only rent movies.
Oh.
Unless there's movies to buy, and I just haven't found any yet.
Well, I'm sure those are coming.
Oh, and you know what? It's the VIGs $1, $3.99 for an SD movie, $4.99 for an HD movie.
Yeah. To own or to rent?
To rent.
That's steep, man.
You can buy a movie for $1.
Oh yeah, I wish.
Go to BitTorrent.
No. Well, last week's show there was talk of USB turntables, right? You got quite a response on that. A lot of viewers wrote in about their recommendations or comments on similar products.
It's for converting the vinyl into the digital music.
Right. So the first one comes from John, and he writes, I did a quick check of available turntables to USB products and settled on Artcessories USB Phono Plus, which turned out to be one of the best gadget purchases I've ever made.
Very cool. If you already own a turntable and you don't want to deal with like an RAA preamp and then going into a sound card, that is a really cool device to actually allow you to connect your turntable directly to your machine. Andrew writes in with a lot of capitals, why does the host totally ignore the fact that vinyl totally blows the sound quality of compact discs away? With the exception of DTS and DVD audio and perhaps SACD, vinyl is the best damn sounding format, period. Dude, I gotta admit, and maybe that I pretty much have spent more than half of my life listening to CDs, but I went out and bought a 180 gram pressing. Feel that. That's love.
Oh, that's serious.
That's serious heavy
right
vinyl. There. And I'm going to put together, I didn't listen to it through my like cool guy audiophile, $1 million preamp that I inherited from somebody, but I'm going to hook up the big stereo. But so far, listening through the $200 headphones, I'm not hearing a lot of music in here that I don't hear on the CD. So I'm going to give it another shot, but I'm not quite buying into the whole, the theory I get, right? Because digital files are a stepped approximation of the actual analog, sound wave. But, and the other problem is so much of what I listen to, Minor Threat, love them, but not exactly something that requires a lot of...
Yeah, a lot of nuance in your...
There's a lot of subtleties in Black Flag that really aren't correctly interpreted in a digital medium.
Well, the last one we got is from Adam, who asked, just wanted to ask you why you prefer direct drive turntables over belt models. The inherent problems with the DD system include the rumble from the motor being directly transferred onto the platter and ends up being picked up by the stylus and is audible during the quieter sections of the song.
I gotta say, I've never heard rumble. I've usually heard noise on the vinyl before I've heard rumble, and I think the problem is audiophile stuff. It was all my whole audiophile lifestyle came after the advent of the CD,
Right.
and all of my turntable stuff that I know from people. Everybody who owns turntables are all DJs, and the DJs are all about direct drive turntables. And it's true, audiophile turntables are usually belt driven. They're also usually a very, very heavy belt, which is basically a rubber band. So
Big old thick rubber band.
an outstanding point, and go forth and sin no more.
Yes,
Do not follow
thank
my
you for
example.
sending your comments and questions to the show. And remember, if you want to get something off your chest or you just want to show us something cool, email Pat and the gang at tekzilla@revision3.com. Patrick?
Hey, we want to take a moment to thank one of our sponsors of the fine folks that pay the bills for us, Netflix. Chances are your local rental store has bupkis for HD rentals if you're looking for a steady supply of newly released Blu-ray titles and, of course, DVD titles and soon-to-be no longer HD DVD titles. Netflix are going to mail them to you, and that's on top of the bazillions of classic titles, foreign movies, anime titles, family titles, and for you film aficionados, many of the Criterion Collection releases. Those are awesome, a little spendy to buy yourself and almost never in your local video store. If you're suffering for videos, you can't find what you want locally, get a free trial at netflix.com/Tekzilla. And that also actually helps us, because if you support our sponsors, you're supporting us. So if you're into movies, you love DVDs, do us a favor, get Netflix a try. It's time now to showcase another unique, indispensable piece of gear that makes our life that much easier. This week it's something Roger, our beloved producer, picked, Belkin's Network USB Hub. Now, if you want to share that USB printer, scanner, or storage device across a network, but you don't want to spend the money on new hardware like print servers, routers, or NAS devices, you should give Belkin's Network USB Hub a try. This little box lets you use almost any USB device across a network, be it a printer, scanner, storage device, or even a webcam. All you need to do is plug it into an outlet and attach it to your home network, your hub, or your router. To access the hub, you're going to need to install and run the client software, which basically requires a machine running Vista, Windows XP, or OS 10.4. Once installed, the client interface is going to indicate what devices are available and which are currently disconnected or being used by someone else on the network. So basically, if you're using the webcam, somebody else on the network can't. If you need to access a device currently being used, select it in the client interface and right-click and then click Request. The person on the other end is going to get a message asking them to allow the other person's access and disconnect them from that device so you can finally print. You can install drivers for USB devices across the network, so if you're connecting a new printer or scanner, there's no need to connect to your machine directly first. It's a nifty solution for Soho or small networks, $130, but allows you to share a lot of stuff, and you can get it at Belkin.com.
Now, Patrick, we recently received an email from a very sad viewer.
This is very sad.
Yes. He wrote, "My house was broken into 3 days ago, and all my toys are gone."
This sucks.
It sucks. I've been running around changing locks, installing motion sensing floodlights, gathering recipes for police and insurance companies, and, gathering receipts.
Are you from the
recipes?
South?
Maybe they would want to cook for them. I don't know.
No, the South, like, I can get the receipt for that tuna.
Yeah, right. So he's gathering receipts for the police and insurance companies, and lastly, getting an alarm installed. In the meantime, I have a webcam set to record motion as a home-brewed security system. There are state-of-the-art alarm systems that cost thousands of dollars, but I don't have the cash, especially since I have to repurchase all my stolen toys. How about some home security suggestions?
Oh, man. Okay, so Ty wrote that in. He's from Los Angeles, California. It's your neck of the woods.
Yeah? I don't know why anyone would ever get anything stolen in LA.
Or San Francisco, or New York, or New Jersey, or the Jersey Shore. I've known somebody who's been either lightly burglarized or totally cleaned out everywhere I've lived, even in the small towns.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've been taught to beware of is there's an entire class of scumbag thief that they steal your stuff, and then they wait for you to buy all the stuff to replace it, and then they steal all the new stuff.
Eesh.
Yeah, that's like a layer of scumbaggery that I just can't relate to on any meaningful level.
Right.
So, Ty, you're really doing all the good stuff. Obviously, you already had homeowners or renters insurance. You've got documentation. This is a great time to have your digital camera and basically take pictures of everything in your house. You should talk to your insurance agent. You should basically really, if you're buying insurance, spend a lot of time researching them and their policies and make sure there's not giant loopholes from hell in them. Renters insurance is especially good in places like LA and San Francisco where you have earthquakes or fires that burn things to the ground regularly, or riots or.
You're making me want to move.
Every time I've seen the pictures of my neighborhood after the quake that happened during the World Series in '89.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scary stuff.
Hey, you build on sand. When the ground shakes, it all goes loose. One of my neighbors in Jersey had a really great idea. He was kind of evil. He was a big fan of posting those. You ever see the lawn or window signs?
Yeah.
Protected by giant expensive corporation.
Right.
He didn't have the alarm system, but he figured the signs might scare folks off, and it's amazing what you can find at a flea market.
Yeah.
So So he spent like...
Sounds like a good plan to me.
You know, it's not a bad idea, right? Because alarms aren't trivial if you plan on relying on them. One of the interesting things that came out is all over CES. It's been around in sort of a small distribution since September. Is Laser Shield's like instant security. They call it security in a box. So they have the master alarm unit, right? So it's $200, a wireless unit, and a couple of keychain devices. And so the idea is that you have your master alarm unit, which you either connect into an analog phone line, or they've got a couple of cool devices that allow you to either connect it to like a GSM phone system, or this basically what they call the Sparrow, which is an adapter that allows you, basically it's a voice over IP adapter. So if you're like you and I, you don't actually have a phone line that functions in your house anymore, you can still use this. And so the idea is that you've got the central alarm, you get one of these boxes, and it's a motion detector that's built into here, and you can get additional ones for $65. So you pop these in every room where you basically figure out everything you need to cover to have motion detectors covering your entrances to your house. And the concept is it's pretty easy to install. I particularly like they have what they call the Pet Shield. So that, like in my case, my dog or my cat would not set off the alarm every 15 minutes. So basically, sort of channels and controls the beam. And the idea is it's pretty simple. These wirelessly communicate to the main alarm. If this gets tripped, then it fires off. And they have a pretty serious, pretty professional 24-hour access service. So it fires off to the access service, then you get called, or if you don't respond or say it's just me, you're drunk, kick it in the front door again.
So you still have to pay a monthly fee for that.
$20 a month. Now, compared to, and basically you're talking about for like, for this, plus an additional key, or additional, and the key fob, there's no keypad. You basically have the fobs, and it's like disarm and arm. And if you hit them both at the same time, the panic mode. And that's kind of what my favorite thing about this is all of these have the big red, oh dear God, help me please, please button. Which is kind of, if you're paranoid, in my neighborhood, it's actually getting more and more justified.
Got to teach the dog not to touch that button too.
Yeah, well, there's times when I want the dog to touch this button. We got a neighbor with a pit bull issue, so he likes pit bulls, so he got a second pit bull, and neither one of them have leashes.
Oh boy.
And they have little control issues.
Well, at least you don't have a small child.
Oh yeah.
Ouch.
Yeah. So we'll change the subject quickly in case my wife is watching. But it's a pretty good concept. There is a downside, right? So it's $20 a month monthly, not too expensive. A lot of good reviews on this. There's a really great guy, Mark Tobias, who does security reporting for Engadget. And this is something that he actually talked to Laser Shield about. And if you basically have the right type of Motorola radio set to the right frequency, and you basically, tape the button down so you're transmitting, so that.
Yeah.
So it will actually effectively block basically the frequency that transmits from the remote units to the base unit.
That's not good.
No, that's not good. That's but. There's a reason why the super expensive systems cost big bucks, or why they're hardwired. People, they can cut your phone or your cable lines. They could potentially cut the power to the house, and that's why.
So there's a ways around everything. You're determined enough.
If you're like, if you have millions of dollars and a trophy, children and expensive things, you probably don't want to buy a $200 alarm system.
Right.
If it's like you or me, and you maybe got some computers
Get a
and
nice
an
TV.
Yeah. Well, what I mean, like replacing your TV is going to hurt you. Then the idea here is that and the Laser Shield guys are like, look. There's a lot of people out there. They're saying there's like 40 million households in the U.S. that could use protection but can't afford it, or they're renters, so they can't install anything permanent. We make it cheap, we make it easy, and the idea is that somebody trips the alarm screams, and they run out the building. So your neighborhood crack addict, drops your television, maybe breaking it, but leaves everything else in your house. Because professional thieves, they're really good. And if you're worth being cased by a professional thief and they see the little window sticker, they're going to be like, bring the Motorola, Bob.
Yeah.
But in a lot of cases, a lot of break-ins are basically done by somebody kicking in a door frame, running in, grabbing everything they can, and running back out. I definitely recommend, Ty, this is something you definitely consider if you haven't bought an alarm system. Obviously, it's spoofable, but the idea is that you want something that's going to scream loud, alert the family, and call the cops. And this will definitely do that. And it's one of the least painful ways I've ever seen of setting up an alarm system. Cool. Definitely check out the Engadget video. We've got links to it in the show note. Tobias, again, is a security specialist, and he's done some great analysis, and even had a big competitor to Laser Shield analyze it, and they were actually pretty impressed with the way it was put together.
That's cool.
So is it hackable? Yeah. Is it better than putting one of those little like $12 things you get from the rent of the you know what I mean? Remember see those the hotel door alarm?
Right.
Yeah, it's a definite step up there.
Everything's better with lasers. I always say that.
Lasers. Is that one? I'm not even going there. Still coming up in the show, a free way to burn CDs and DVDs on your Windows machine. How you can or maybe can't use Linux to update the firmware in your graphics card or your motherboard, and what exactly do you do with source code to make it into something useful, like an application? We're going to tell you all about that when Tekzilla returns. Hey, I want to take a moment to remind you, our loyal viewers, that this spiffy episode of Tekzilla is sponsored by the folks at Domain.com. And Domain.com might not have a race car driver, but they are big supporters of Revision 3, and they've got some serious deals on domain names and hosting. Shop around. They promise us no funky deals, just $8.75 to register a domain, and they'll make that registration private if you drop another $5. Now, don't take my word for it. Price out your next domain at Domain.com versus the other guys, and see who's got the best straight-up deal. Type in Tekzilla when you're checking out at Domain.com, and you'll chop 25% off the price of your domains and hosting. That's just $6.71 for a domain name and 25% off every hosting plan they have. It's as good as it gets. Check them out at Domain.com. It's time again for our freebie download pick of the week. If you want to save some cash on a really nifty disk burning utility, definitely check out ImageBurn. It's free. It's available at imgburn.com, and this application lets you create burnable disk images for various formats, including CDs, DVDs, HD DVD, and Blu-ray. You can write an image file or other files and folders to a disk, create an image file from a disk or from files already on your hard drive, and even verify a disk to make sure it burned properly. ImageBurn supports a wide range of image file formats, including bin, Q, DIE, DVD, G, IMG, ISO, MDS, Energy, and PVI. How about that? This is a really simple, no-frills program that anybody can use, and it's much faster and less resource-intensive than most of the off-the-shelf applications. And did we mention it's free? If you're in the market for burning software, give ImageBurn a try first. It's not like it's going to cost you anything. Now, if you need to get your email accounts from all your webmail accounts like Yahoo or Hotmail or AOL via POP service because you've had all these things for years, but you're tired or you just don't want to pay extra for a free email service, our next guest has something you're going to love. We want to welcome Ann to the show. Ann is an actual, genuine MIT graduate with a BS degree in electrical engineering, computer science, and she's a freelance programmer, a technical consultant, which means, unlike me, she's actually qualified to host this show. What is Free Pops?
Well, Free Pops is like a free open source software. And it's basically an application that you have running on your computer, and it acts as a POP3 server.
Oh, cool.
It turns your computer into a POP3 server where you can kind of access it with your email client and grab all your emails from your webmail service, and it kind of acts as a translator.
So it basically goes up, logs in, grabs all the email, parses it. And
I mean, it's basically a substitute for you going in, putting your email in, clicking, doing all the buttons, and downloading all your email to it. But it does it through your client, and it's completely free.
So you basically don't have to pay for the POP3 access.
Exactly. Who wants to pay for like free software, right?
Who wants $5 here? It's $6
like free
there.
webmail. Yeah, right. So.
I like that thought. So does it run on OS 10?
Yeah, it runs on OS 10, Windows, and also all your favorite Nixes and BOS.
How about Vista?
Vista, it does run on. You have to download the binaries. The auto installer doesn't work, but
So it's kind of Rube Goldberg, because you go from your email client to a local POP server. The POP servers already access the clients by basically entering as if it was a people. Is it work pretty reliably?
Yeah, it actually works really, really well. I've been using it for probably about 2 years, and the problems happen when Hotmail decides to change from Hotmail to Windows Live or something.
Got it.
And when Yahoo updated their interface to be like all Ajax and pretty, so but
all of a sudden you get this sort of strange list of code.
I mean, it's like it like dies pretty much. But actually, the cool thing about it is that because it's open source, it's got like this huge community and of all these international programmers and users and everything, so people notice that it stopped working right away. They post on the forums, and
it's the advantage of open source.
Exactly, open source. And
how hard was it to set up? You want to show us how to set it up?
Yeah, I'm gonna demo that today on OS 10 because it works pretty easily on OS 10. So the first thing you want to do is go to Free Pops, www.freepops.org, and what I'm gonna do is I've already downloaded the package. You download it as a zip file, click on it. So I've already installed it, and basically drag it into your applications, click on it, and I have it, don't show me this message again. I like to kind of have it start up every time automatically. So I put it in my login items here, and I've already added that. And that's pretty much it for installing it. I'm setting it up in Thunderbird because it's, multi-platform.
Open source.
Exactly.
Cousin to Firefox.
Yep.
Nice email tool.
I don't know. I mean, you can set it up on Mac Mail and pretty much anything. It's POP3, so all you have to do is create a new account. Let's call it test, and I've set up a Yahoo account just for this demo, and pop your local server. Incoming server is localhost. I like to not put it there. Incoming username, freepopsuser@yahoo.com. And let's just leave that as the account name. And let's not download it now. Here we go. And we want to go here, your settings, and change the server port to 2000, because that's kind of the default way that it runs. It runs on port 2000. And
where it's looking for on the IP.
Yep. And there you go. Let's try it. See if it grabs anything. And there it is.
So it's pretty cool. So basically, once you install and set it up so it starts every time you start the client, you basically have no more configuration.
Yeah, I mean, you just don't have to worry about it. It's not very resource intensive at all. And the setup is really easy. It's also kind of cool because you can use it as an RSS feed aggregator. And the setup, you can read about it more on the website.
Cool. Absolutely free?
Absolutely free.
Absolutely open source?
Absolutely open source. Absolutely cross-platform. It's a really useful tool.
It makes you happy.
It does. I've got it. I don't like logging in and doing all my webmail things, but I kind of want to have all these different IM accounts, and I want people who have my IM name to be able to contact me at that email address if they forget my email address for some reason. So, this is kind of a good way to grab it.
Cool. So you showed it on Thunderbird. Will it run with pretty much any email client?
Yep, pretty much. Mac Mail, Outlook, works just fine.
All about the POP3.
That's right.
Cool demo, Ann. Thank you so much. Folks, we're going to come out, we got some viewer questions for you, some more open sourcey kind of stuff that we actually brought in one of the big guns from our IT department to answer. In this case, Brendan White, Revision 3's, get this, packet herder, and I like to think of him as the master of Linux. What does a packet herder do, Brendan?
I got tired of trying to describe myself as a network administrator or a Unix administrator or someone that makes machines go, and it just seemed a much broader umbrella to cover all the possible things I do.
And much less depressing than herder of cats.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's a little easier.
You ready for some emails?
Sure.
You ready?
Let's do it.
You're in place?
In place.
The first email comes from Brad in Germany. Brad writes, and this is for $1,000. When I'm surfing the internet or talking to friends, I often get recommendations on new software. However, it often comes in the form of source code, but I don't really know what to do once I have the code downloaded. Ouch. Where do I go from here in order to use this wonderful piece of software? Brad, this is a great question. This is like a classic open source hurdle.
Exactly. So
what's a source code?
When a programmer is writing a program, obviously instead of writing lots of ones and zeros in a row, which would be tedious and time consuming, they write in an intermediate language, which basically makes human-like statements turn into regular type code.
C++.
C++, BASIC, on the old Apple IIs, whatever you happen to learn. Pascal.
Fortran. Sorry.
So essentially, it's the job of the programmer to write these little bits of English-like language, at which point they will send it to another computer program, which will turn it into all those ones and zeros that we know about.
That's a compiler.
That's a compiler.
I took the basic computer class in college. So can I run any source code through any compiler? How do I figure out what to do?
Well, usually, if you're dealing with source code yourself, it's most likely going to be a Unix or a Macintosh type machine, just because most of the time, if people are distributing for Windows, they can just make one program and give it to everyone.
It's an executable. portable.
Exactly. But if you want something that's going to run on a few platforms, then you're going to want to write it in a way that's a little bit more portable. And often you'll be called upon to make it go yourself.
Is there sort of a standard compiler that, you're running Ubuntu, there's a compiler in there that you should be using?
The world seems to love this GCC thing, which is the GNU CC compiler, which is most Linuxes have it these days. There's a Windows port called Cygwin. OS X is pretty much based on it.
When you say something like the world seems to like, that usually implies that you think you know of something vastly better that we should all be using.
Not necessarily vastly better, but there's a lot of politics and heated emotions going behind the whole GNU environment.
Emacs, GNU, BSD.
And the licensing and what people use. So
Right.
the BSD camp would say that the true compiler would be the C compiler that BSD spawned, of which GCC is a woeful imitation. But
So open up GCC. Do I open up a source file? I mean, there's the source code. Is it kind of like open and then it regurgitates the application, or?
well, usually you're in a command line environment. So if the person was doing their job right in the source code, then it's as simple as typing /configure, which is this beautiful little script which says, hey, what kind of machine am I running on? What kind of things do I have to worry about? How much RAM? How much whatever? And it'll decide what all the options that you need to actually run and make the program on yourself.
And then I copy it to the appropriate folder, or what happens next?
So after you type configure, that pretty much just sets the framework together. You run the command called make, which is the one that actually goes and changes all those pieces of English-like things back into actual machine code. And that's where it'll actually spit out an executable that you can copy to a folder or copy to a directory and actually run.
So are there usually alternatives to using source code? Because I always see, maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just not getting the really cool guy applications, but it usually seems there's a lot of binaries I can download. Is that the right phrase for an executable, a binary?
Correct. Usually a binary. And binaries are usually written for a specific version of the operating system and a specific machine. Most of the time, if there's a binary, if you're running Ubuntu and you're running on a regular piece of hardware, the package is going to be fine for you. It's going to have everything you want. This is mostly the case where it's either a lesser known piece of software or you have a slightly different distribution or something just wasn't ever thought of that you were going to be running this particular piece of software on this machine.
It's probably, so it basically like checks sources. If the application has a source forge page, you can check that for a binary. If not, it's time to fire up. Is that
Exactly.
CGG?
I'm sorry?
CGG?
CGG?
No, the compiler.
Oh, GCC.
I'm dyslexic too. Who knew? Cool. One more question for us?
Sure.
This kind of had me stumped. Mike says, I was wondering if it's possible to do BIOS updates to your motherboard or video cards if you're using Linux.
There's a loaded question if I ever heard one.
Oh man, is that a loaded question? You're assuming, of course, there are actual drivers for Linux in the first place for your
For the
hardware.
outdoor to actually work in the
Yeah. Sorry.
Short answer, maybe.
Right.
These days, with a lot of these computer manufacturers supporting Linux more specifically, Dell comes to mind, for instance, IBM, they've heard that these people need to update these machines and their BIOS files. So you actually will find some of these bigger manufacturers will have the programs to run them directly in Linux. If that's not the case, if you have some kind of weird, DVD drive, hard drive or something that has a
graphics card that doesn't have
card that has
Linux support.
firmware, a lot of times you can get away with running Wine, the Windows emulation library. I'm sorry, it's not an emulation library. Windows. Wine is not emulation. It's a library which pretends to do a lot of the same things that Windows will do. And in those instances, you can often get, you get the Plex Store executable for Windows. You can run it in this environment under Linux, and it'll actually do the same thing and update your firmware.
The other thing you can do is if it's a removable piece of, obviously a motherboard isn't really removable. A motherboard you might be able to boot to a USB thumb drive or a bootable CD-ROM drive or a floppy disk if anybody still runs one of those. Or you can I've done this, yank a graphics card out of one system, put it in a Windows system, run the
Just
firmware
enough time to
update.
run it up, and then when you get the firmware done, then the hardware works perfectly under Unix.
Brendan, thanks so much, man.
No problem. Glad to be here.
Cool. Folks, if you need to learn anything more about what we talked about today, check the show notes. We're going to have links to sites and additional information. And of course, you can find that, the show notes, you can find at revision3.com/Tekzilla.
Big thanks to the folks at GoToMyPC.com for sponsoring Tekzilla. With GoToMyPC, you can access your entire desktop and system from anywhere. Download the software to your computer in minutes, log on to GoToMyPC.com, and you can access your PC anywhere you've got a browser and net access. Simply the easiest way to access a computer from anywhere. So work on your office computer from home, your home computer from work, fix your dad's computer from anywhere in the world. The best part is you can try it free for 30 days. Visit GoToMyPC.com, click on the Try It Free button, and do us a favor. Enter the code Tekzilla because it helps us out when you do that. The trial is free, the service is secure and simple, and it's definitely worth a look.
All right, Patrick, you want to answer some more viewer email questions?
Absolutely.
All right. First one comes from Jesse. He writes, I use ResNet for the internet in my dorm at NYU. ResNet doesn't support my Xbox 360, but I want Xbox Live access.
That's understandable.
Yeah, cloning the MAC address from my roommate's machine works, but it's unstable. Do you have any suggestions?
Actually, it's pretty. Have you had a chance to review NYU's ResNet user policy?
No, I haven't made it out there myself.
It's a little restrictive, and there's like no sense of humor there, especially about peer-to-peer servers. And for everybody that went to college before the internet, which includes me
And me, unfortunately.
and quite a few other people making the show for you, residential network equals ResNet, i.e. internet for the dorms. And it's amazing because you do a search for ResNet in college, and you get like every freaking university on the planet. And you know what? They're all really uptight about peer-to-peer because none of them want to get sued. So you might want to think about transferring to Purdue though, because they've got instructions for connecting to their ResNet system with an Xbox directly on like the sponsored like,
How hip
IT
is that?
pages. That's so cool.
That's great.
But what you do want to do is take advantage of the Xbox Live's ability to clone a MAC address. Now, a MAC address, if you don't know, is the individual address applied to everything that connects to the internet. Network cards, Wi-Fi cards, any devices that have built-in network access. Every vendor gets a range, it gets applied to the card, and it's sort of the ultimate way of identifying hardware below the IP address or above the IP address. Don't ask me about stacks, I'll start crying. It's really easy to find this in OS 10s about this Mac, more info or XP's ipconfig. Basically go into run command, open up a command terminal, type in ipconfig/all, and it'll give you the MAC address information. Since you are allowed 2 computers on the network in NYU, and you've mentioned that lots of folks in the dorms, against NYU policy, mind you, have attached routers, we can either get a MAC address from a machine you aren't using and register that, and put that one, because it's actually really easy to spoof a MAC address on your Xbox.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's actually kind of fascinating. I got links to that in the show notes. Or do the same thing with a cheap router and connect all of the hardware, yours and your roommates, and anything you want to that.
Yeah, but if you do that, don't do what you said in the email that some of the other people in the dorm are doing, which is use your your dorm number as your SSID, which is not very smart.
Yeah, I'm thinking if all it takes is one bored, angry IT dude, and there's going to be a whole bunch of people getting smacked down.
Yeah.
So IT admins go to college too, so they're probably pretty gentle about it. But do yourself a favor. I don't think you can get thrown out of school for doing this, but just try not to expose the network. That would be bad.
Yeah.
Especially when you have the population density of like the East Village or the West Village where the NYU dorms are.
I wish we had this when I went to college, man. I literally was there at the cusp of the internet revolution, and
we had like Finger.
Yeah, we had an email address that we thought we were on top of the world.
This is amazing. I went to college before there was web browsers. Our next email comes from Matthew, who says, I want an external hard drive I can fill with movies, hook up to my PSP that's small enough to keep in my little tiny PSP case. Can a PSP use an external hard drive to access files? Look, it's my paperweight. I mean, my PSP. I think there's like one drive that's ever been modded to work like properly with a PSP. Mm-hmm. It's like $200. It's 4 gigabytes, and it sucks.
Doesn't seem like that much additional space. 4 gigabytes.
Well, when it came out a couple years ago, I think it's one of those products that shipped a little bit later than anybody expected it to. Mm. Basically, you can buy a 4 gigabyte memory stick, and that's pretty much your best option.
Yeah.
Is just spend the money on memory sticks and compress the bejesus out of your movies. There's one guy who figured out a way to take, it was actually pretty slick. He bought an external hard drive case that would also act as like a little mini web router. So he kind of connected that to the network off the hard drive case, but it was a 5.25-inch drive. It's got to be plugged into a wall. It's huge. It's ridiculous. It's not going to fit in your PSP case. I would just break down and buy more memory.
Or buy a PS3 and have the PS3 send you remotely, which it can do now.
I know, but if I think he's thinking like on the plane or on the bus, or it's hard. I got my PS3 and my generator. I don't think it's going to get through airport security.
Well, no, the PS3 at home you can send you your file.
That's true.
Over the internet.
Okay.
To your PSP.
If you're doing it at home and you don't need to travel with it, buy a PS3. I don't think I've ever said that before. Buy a PS3.
Hey, Blu-ray run the war. It's the week to buy a PS3.
If anybody would like to buy, by the way, a slightly used Xbox hard drive, an Xbox HD DVD drive, email me, Tekzilla@revision3.com. And do me a favor, if you've got a question, a suggestion, or pics of some outrageous tech setups, send them on in to us. The address is, as always, Tekzilla@revision3.com. And do us a favor, don't forget to check out previous episodes of Tekzilla. They're all waiting to be watched by you at revision3.com/Tekzilla. Coming up on the next show, crack any DVD, computer speakers that don't suck, an easy print server, because you know what, print servers, $50 seems simple? No, Inkscape and VMware versus Parallels. That's going to be a good one.
Cool, can't wait to watch it.
Dude, thanks for coming out.
It's my pleasure, man. I've been a fan of yours for a long time. It's been a total treat to be here.
It was a total treat to have you.
Yeah.
Totally Rad Show?
Totally Rad Show, check it out.
What's the URL?
revision3.com/TRS.
I like that thought. Don't forget to check out the Totally Rad Show right here on Revision 3. Until next time, you've been watching Tekzilla. I'm Patrick Norton.
And I'm Jeff Canada.